have been making mention of AviaDev, which happened last week. We can't really speak hospitality and getting people to destinations if we don't know how we're going to get them there. And so aviation really does play an imperative role within the hospitality and tourism space. I'm going to call somebody who I've learned to love a lot. I think he loves my husband a little bit more than he does me. They've worked together for many years before us, but he is the mastermind behind AviaDev. He's all things flights, aviation. There's nothing about aviation he does not know, literally. So please help me welcome warmly on stage with a round of applause, John Howell. Thanks, brother. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. So Tammy made mention of it this morning. We actually got you up nice and early and went for a run. So for those who went running, can you stand up? We got anybody in the room who actually came on the run and has made it to the first session? Oh, I'm not even sure we have got anybody, right? Okay. I was really hoping that they were going to get a round of applause. So you've got to do that later, Tammy, okay? So we got them back at 8:05. I was hoping that some of them would have been here an hour later, but obviously not. So, as Tammy said, my name is John Howell. I'm the CEO and founder of AviaDev Africa. I've dedicated the last 12 years of my life to supporting African aviation only. And what our platform did here last week is it brought together 40 airlines from across the continent and beyond, 90 airline planning delegates, CEOs, airports from all over Africa and beyond as well. And we delivered over 1,200 pre-arranged meetings with one objective, which is to improve air connectivity to, from, and within the African continent. Now, we're not actually going to talk about Africa as a whole today. We're going to really laser into Namibia, and we're going to we've had so much work done by the NIPDB talking about what's happening in Namibia. There's the investment session going on next door. So what we wanted to do here is really bring the Namibian conversation to the table. And to do that, I'm going to invite two delegates up that are making that happen and forming the future of Namibia's connectivity. But before that, Tammy mentioned that I love African aviation, and I do. I would almost rather be nowhere else than here talking about it, to the point that actually today is my 9th wedding anniversary. So if my wife is watching, sorry, Susie, I'll see you tomorrow. But she understands, so yeah, happy anniversary. And she's called Susie as well, like the amazing Susie Ises that was with us yesterday. So before we start, before I just invite the panelists up, I just want to provide a tiny bit of background on Namibia's environment from an aviation perspective. So I think we all know it's a very small population in a huge country, second least densely populated country on Earth, I believe, behind maybe Mongolia. So it's got a very small local population and huge distances to fly those domestic routes, which makes it really unique. It has a unique set of challenges which we're going to address today. But to give you the background, there used to be a national airline here called Air Namibia. It struggled for many years and it actually went into liquidation. The government liquidated it in 2021. The pandemic was really the final sort of nail in the coffin for it. And it went down with debts of over 5 billion Namibian dollars. So it was a real struggle to make the national airline work. And out of the ashes of that, we have an airline, FlyNamibia, that was created that is here performing many of those tasks. So I've got Andre from FlyNamibia to join me on stage, and also Bisey, who is in charge of all of the airports in Namibia. He's the CEO of the airports company, and we're going to get a bit of feedback on what happened last week here in this room with AviaDev and focus on what the future holds for Namibia. So please welcome me, join them. They can join me on stage now. Bisey, Andre, come take a seat. Okay, welcome. We're back again, Bisey.
Thank you, John.
Okay, I want to start with you, and I would really like to start by looking at the potential outcomes and the impact of what we did last week and what it means for Namibia and the future connectivity and the conversations you're having. Anything you wish to disclose about new routes, route expansions, new destinations, please, this is your platform, but don't disclose anything you're not supposed to.
Thank you, John, and good morning to all the delegates here. Last week was a a memorable time for us here in Namibia, where we hosted over 500 delegates to this very room and had very interesting, great discussions around aviation in our country. We have met a couple of airlines who have shown serious interest to come to our country because Namibia, in our view, is so well located to connect the world with Southern Africa and Southern Africa with the world. We had discussions with airlines from Europe and from the region here, from the Middle East, and I can say here with great enthusiasm that many airlines would want to come to our country. And that commitment has been made clear to the extent that some regional airlines are looking at coming to Namibia as early as before the end of this year. So we are very excited. We are very happy with the outcome of last week. Many people who were part of the AviaDev conference have also indicated that it is their first time to visit our country, but they have committed to come back here with their families, but also for other businesses. So we are very happy with the result of the investment that was made in AviaDev, and we look forward to welcoming them as much as we look forward to welcoming you back to Namibia, the AHIV participants. Thank you.
Fantastic. So, as Tammy said in the intro, you know, there is no, you guys, the reason we created AviaDev is because Matthew and the team came to me and said, investors want to know what's happening with airlift. They're not going to build a hotel if the airlift isn't going to get better. And what we did, that's how AviaDev began. So this conversation and what Bisey said is there's now going to be more seats into the market. There's more people coming. It makes it a more attractive destination to invest, to build hotels and different products as well. But what I want to do now is come to Andre. So we don't have an aviation audience necessarily. I'm not judging you, not assuming that you know nothing about aviation, but FlyNamibia might be something new. And I alluded to a little bit of the challenges because of the size of the physical distances. But just give us an overview about what FlyNamibia is, what it aims to serve, you know, and the route network that you have at the moment, Andre.
Thank you, John. FlyNamibia is a privately owned airline. We've got an obligation and we've got a self-imposed mandate to contribute to the development of the aviation sector in Namibia, and through that to contribute to the economic development of our country. It is simply not possible for the economy of our country to develop without a well-established domestic and regional network. That in itself poses some great challenges. You know, we've got distances varying between 300 and 500 nautical miles that we have to fly to small airports with very low loads. Our domestic market simply cannot sustain an airline in any shape or form. The only way in which we can offer a sustainable service is through connectivity, through bringing in passengers into our main hub here, and to do distribution thereof throughout the country. And that was one of the big benefits of AviaDev last week. I think many of the delegates for the first time realized what potential Namibia has as a destination for them and what we can do in terms of distribution. So what we want to do is we proudly Namibian, we private, but we want to contribute to the growth of our economy, and we want to do that by establishing and growing the network that we're serving.
Yeah, and I think the point here is that you will be aware that it's an interesting environment, the aviation industry, that you have airlines that are state-owned and you have private airlines. So a state-owned airline, when it starts losing money, it can go to the government, and those of you from South Africa probably are quite aware of this. But there are lots of them in Africa and around the world. They can go to government, ask for more money. When you're a private business, you've got to make money, and the geographical limitations of Namibia mean that a real opportunity for you, which you've alluded to, is actually partnering. So let the big carriers bring the people to Namibia, and then you can distribute them. But just on the route network side, you don't just distribute them around Namibia, right? It's around the neighboring countries, and you have a really interesting route launching next week.
Yeah, we're very excited. We're launching Maun, Windhoek Maun on Wednesday. Currently, Ethiopian is starting a service into Maun, but the bulk of the tourists and those are really the top-end tourists going into Botswana, into the Delta, have to fly via either Johannesburg or Cape Town at this stage. And we're delighted that we'd be able to offer a more economical and a much faster route from Europe through Windhoek. So we're launching that. As you know, we have launched Vic Falls 2-3 months ago, which has really taken off. And that's part of our aim. We focused on tourism and serving the tourist routes. And we believe that with the partnerships we have with currently one airline flying into Uziakutaku and hopefully many more in future, that we can really offer a proper network to distribute those passengers to where they want to be at.
Yeah, which is really exciting for Namibia because, as I alluded to in the starting point, Air Namibia went down with debts of over 5 billion. You now have private airlines that are actually putting into the government coffers because, of course, they're paying their landing fees, they're paying their ground handling fees, they're employing people. And if you look at what the route network is of Namibia as a whole compared to pre-pandemic, I think tourism numbers are up versus 2019, so it's a really unique case that they've gone beyond that. But also the government isn't having to fund and keep the airline going. So there will always be conversations around the merits, and we're not here to debate the merits of a national airline or otherwise. But just be careful what you wish for, I suppose. We've seen this in other parts of the world, and there are definitely routes, and we're going to talk about that shortly. They're just not economically viable without support, and we'll talk about how Andre's making those work in a second. But just before that, I want to come to you, Bisey, because you don't operate in a silo. To get these airlines to come is not just the job of the airport company. And one of my favorite sayings that I say all the time is, an airline doesn't fly to an airport, it flies to the destination. And the biggest customer of a tourism board is the airline. If you're a country like Namibia, people aren't arriving here by foot, by train, by road. You've got to build those relationships with the airlines because they are your supply, that then the tour operators, the travel agents can sell the seats on those planes, but without the planes, there's no supply into the country. And the more seats you get, then of course you can create competition, people can get here different ways, and the price comes down, more people can fly, more people fly, etc. It's very, very symbiotic in terms of the way that it works. But you've launched in Namibia an air access group. So I think it'd be great to just give everybody a bit of an overview of what the aim of that is, who's involved in it, and obviously what the objective is.
Thank you, John. We believe at the Namibia Airports Company that for us to attract travelers to our country, it must be a collective approach, that we must work together with all the key stakeholders to make sure that everybody is on board and that everybody makes a contribution to attracting people here. And as an airport, when we go out to market, we don't market the airport, the international airport that most of you came through, but we market Destination Namibia. And obviously, there are many key stakeholders that are involved in that. That is, the tourism industry is heavily involved. They are a key stakeholder. We have the investment board. They are very involved. The broader business community, the government. So what we have done is to set up a Namibia Air Connect forum through which we work collectively to promote our country, to promote the products that we are selling as a country. And that has really gone extremely well. Everybody has come to the party. Everybody is making his or her contribution. All the sectors are playing together, and we are seeing the impact of that collaboration. And I'm very happy that even today, where we have a hospitality forum, that all the other stakeholders are also participating in this one. And that's a clear indication that partnership really brings people together. We are saying also that as an airport company alone, you cannot do it, because you want feed through the airport, but that feed will come to tourist establishments. They will come to do business here in our country, and therefore that linkages are so important, and that's the reason why we are having this collective approach to marketing Destination Namibia.
Yeah, so Team Namibia, you have this laser focus where everybody is aligned. They want the same thing, be it tourism, be it aviation, be it investment. We know where we're going. But I want to come back to you, Andre, because we talked about the really unique challenges of the local market. So you've talked about your regional feed, but you have a responsibility as a Namibian. You've taken it on to provide connectivity for the local market. And you were telling me about a really interesting way that you've been able to actually provide service and not have to take the financial losses by providing that public service. So it'd be great for you to just tell us how you've done that and which partners were involved.
Yeah, Bisey's just alluded to partnerships, and that's really what we try and establish with our airline. And as an example thereof, which I discussed with you, Total, which is Total Energy is one of the biggest oil companies. When they started their drilling campaign at the coast, they required a scheduled service to Lüderitz twice a day, which was impossible for us to make. And we entered into a partnership whereby they committed to take a certain number of seats per day, and that allowed us to put in a service which did not exist beforehand, and that stimulated the market to such an extent now that the local market is almost big enough to sustain the service in the absence of Total, who's completed their drilling campaign. On the other end is, we've got two big cost drivers in the industry. One is our fixed cost, which are lease cost and insurance cost. There's nothing you can do about it. That's there. And the other one is obviously your variable cost in terms of fuel and landing fees. And the only way in which we can offer a sustainable service is to get the maximum utilization out of our equipment. Now, the challenge in our country is that if I fly to Ondangwa once a day, I've served the market. There's no other option to fly twice. So what we do is, in order to get utilization up, to get our fixed cost lower per unit, is to fly thinner routes that are not really viable. But the contribution in the decreased fixed cost component allows us to do it on a sustainable basis.
Yeah, it's such a tricky market because it's a small market with huge distances, and what you're doing is really impressive. We have a thing in Europe, there are routes called PSOs, that means a public service obligation. So they're routes that an airline would never fly because commercially they can't make the revenue to cover the costs. So what you end up doing is the government dives in and actually provides a guarantee to that airline so that the airline can serve it, whether there's one person on the plane or 15 people on the plane. And I really believe, there's a debate here, and we've only got a few seconds left, but there's a debate between what is an airline. Is it providing a public service or is it a business? And I would say, well, when it can't make business sense to fly those routes, the government has to step in, or a private company steps in to actually give that airline company surety that it can pay its bills. You wouldn't fly that route if you know you're going to lose money. That's just terrible business. So, that's a really important part. We've only got 20 seconds left, but the final word to you guys is just what's next? Where do we want to see Namibia connected to in a year's time, Bisey? Not to put your head on the block, but just where would you like? What's on the agenda?
Namibia is on the verge of a huge energy boom. Therefore, we need people to travel to Namibia, and we know people who travel to Namibia from Europe, Middle East, the rest of Africa. We invite you to come to our country, enjoy the great business opportunities and great leisure. Thank you.
Perfect. And Andre, what about the route network of FlyNamibia?
Bisey will get the passengers into Ziakutaku, and we'll make sure that we can distribute them. Wherever there is a demand, we'll be there to do the distribution.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Bisey. Thank you, Andre. What a great session. I really enjoyed that. And thank you for your support and partnership.